This is Bevin. Welcome to Bevin, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm your host, Bevin. I've said my name 3 times. It's time to start the show. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Mskindness Ramirez. She's an incredible educator and multi-passionate entrepreneur, as I am, and just has so much to share about the plant and healing and her journey. And something I really love about the plant and how it brings people to become educators, because Mskindness says this in this episode, that pretty much everyone in cannabis is a cannabis educator and is working to educate people, simply because this is a plant that's existed for millennia, but we've had many decades of active work and stigmatization against this plant that can help heal us. We all have endocannabinoid systems that can benefit potentially from this plant. So I am just super excited to share her with you, and I hope you'll pick up her book. I hope you'll consider her hair care products and or anything she offers, especially her education work. If you're newer to cannabis, I would encourage you to really work on getting educated and connecting to learning new ways of healing with the plant. I said in this episode, but I just learned about a new terpene recently that can help with migraines, which was a life changer for me and really helped. Once I learned about it just 2 days ago, really helped me yesterday to like get through the shadow period after that migraine. Shout out to Myrcene. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but wow, what a changer. Okay, so before we get started with the show, I want to tell you about the best way to support this podcast is through my Patreon page. Patreon, patreon.com, is a website that helps creators like me be supported by folks like you. It's almost like what record companies used to do, only crowdfunded. So I create aerobics. So my page is patreon.com/FKDP. It stands for Fat Kid Dance Party Aerobics. It's for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. It is definitely different than any other type of movement you'll ever do. It's very body focused and freedom focused. I'm here to help leaders get free in their minds and bodies. This is why I also have a podcast, because this work is as much about mindset as it is about movement and skill set, right? And really, I'm just here to give you tools to help your life be easier and to help you have a better experience in your life. I think a life worth living is the life that is worth living for you, right? And a life you actually enjoy. And frankly, the plant helps me enjoy my life. So part of my offerings on my Patreon page include on-demand videos. I produce a 10-minute, a 20-minute, 2 55-minute classes, a chair aerobics class, and a Canna size class. Canna size is slower, more low tempo aerobics for use with an optional cannabis experience. CBD could work, THC, of course, or nothing at all if you just like a slower class. It's really, I like cannabis with movement because it helps me dissolve the a-hole that lives in my brain. I think everybody has that a-hole. And it helps me just get into my body and just enjoy what I'm doing. Because frankly, I grew up and I felt like exercise was torture and it was meant to punish my body, right? So now I've reclaimed that and I rotate those videos. I refresh one a week. I'm so excited to get to do this work. I also have been collaborating with other creators on Patreon to do self-care parties. So I've done a neurographic art therapy class with my friend Kendra. And upcoming this month, we're going to do a puff and paint class with my friend Mindy. I also did a collaborative aerobics class with 3 other instructors that I really enjoy working with. And that's up there in the on-demand membership. So all of that is $25 a month. And it includes all of my Zoom aerobics classes, which are available at the lowest tier, which is $7 a month. And those Zoom aerobics classes, highlight of my week is to get to teach those class and connect with folks and to hear more about their self-care. We do a self-care check-in after class where it's just helpful, honestly, to live a life centered around self-care, to have people to check in about what you're doing. And even if you're not living your life centered around self-care, which I would argue is a better use of your time because it maximizes how much you can put out in a shorter period of time. Self-care stretches time, right? And so the Zoom classes are available. Plus, I have spiritual self-care lessons. I'm doing a body love series, and there's so much more value that I keep adding to that patreon.com/FKDP page. So if this work is valuable to you, I would love to support your self-care through that membership. It is why I'm able to do this podcast. My co-host Biscuit Reynolds has joined me, so he is here to welcome you as well. I want you to imagine that you're on a porch somewhere gorgeous overlooking a beautiful view. You're with me and Mskindness, and you're cuddled up with your favorite cozy childhood blanket, and on with the show. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the podcast, Mskindness.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I'm so glad you're here. I always like to start business in the front. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing with us who you are and what you offer in the world.
Oh, wow. What a big question. Well, people call me Mskindness Ramirez. That's because that's what my dad named me 44 years and 4 days ago.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I'd like to say that I'm an educator. I've been an educator for many lifetimes. This one, it just happens to be something I get paid to do it in. So yeah, I'm a teacher and an author and a cannabis executive who manufactures wonderful CBD products. And I'm a mother and a wife and so many things, a whole spiritual human being who's trying to figure out this life.
Oh, for real. Okay, so let's talk about each sort of pillar of what you offer, because you really are like, I mean, in many ways, goals, like just like really creating a lot of verticals of ways that you serve people. Let's talk about your hair care products first.
Ooh, that's exciting. Okay, so Our Kind is the name of the hair line, and it is infused hair and body care for modern consumers. Essentially, we rebranded EBK Apothecary, which is the company I started in 2015 when I started making cannabis medicine to heal my own body. And we evolved and evolved and grew, but it maintained craft. It was me and, my assistant and my husband, and we were just labeling and shipping, and it was working well for many years. But then something happened to me during the pandemic. I want to say like maybe something existential, where I began asking myself what more I could do. Mm-hmm. And it meant really in an overnight, like awakening, like, oh, this is it. It meant leaving the traditional tincture products behind, and it meant bringing something to a community of women of color who had struggled with hair issues that I knew were rooted in so much more. Mm-hmm. That is, it's not just about hair. It's about like our relationship with our mothers and the way we were taught to take care of our hair and what we were told about our hair and the way it grows and the way it looks and styling and how we began to do things, particularly women of color, to our crowns to try to fit this narrative that had been, told to us. I have dreadlocks, obviously. I went through the big chop when I was 30 and freed myself from the relaxers and the chemicals and went through a sort of reclamation of my, powerful Black womanhood with my natural hair. But then left it, right? Just kept doing it. And then I think the pandemic really, 2020, the events, all of that, what it awakened in so many of us, made me feel like I wanted to bring a product to market that not only would just be great and help people and give you nice hair, but also work from the crown all the way down to just heal us. And so Our Kind tells stories. We offer history. We have a ton of supportive systems, like we have Our Kind Radio, which when you're doing hair, you can put on these playlists and feel good. And we have, what I'm most proud of, is a Crown Impact Fund. And that allows our customers to round up their purchases. We will match it. And then we're actually going to be putting out some RFPs for organizations that support the children and women of those impacted by the war on drugs. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole mission for me, Bevin. It's just, yeah.
I love that. I love mission-driven business in general, but certainly mission-driven lifestyle. And also, again, I love the education has like gone into the hair care. But talk about your educational offerings too, because you are just, I mean, I know you post-pandemic, right? Like I think I met you originally in 2020 at an online event, but I've seen you many times at different online events, and I feel like you are just like an educator all over the place.
I really am. I think, I say that now, like I've developed this talk, right? Like, oh, this is what I've been doing for lifetimes, but it's so freaking true. Like I was the kid out on the street, with my friends going, okay, everybody, we're going to play school. Like, that's what we're going to play. We're not going to play ball. We're not going to play jump rope. We're going to play school. And I'm going to be the teacher. So that was 3-year-old Mskindness. And, in kindergarten, I would cut off the teacher and say, well, don't you mean this? Like that, that was 5-year-old Mskindness. And so it's always been there. And so you're right. It just weaves throughout everything. Now, yes, I've worked in a classroom. I taught high school for many years. I taught geometry and pre-calculus. Yes, I'm a total math nerd. I love
I'm
numbers.
the daughter of a math teacher, a high school math teacher.
I love that. See, there's that kindred again. There's that. Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. I joke and say like it was an easy transition to cannabis because I know numbers and I can measure out things. So, and then years later, I became a college teacher, and that's because I was teaching a cannabis course on a college campus, and the dean offered me a job on her faculty. So yeah, I'm a teacher everywhere I go. It just comes through. I think what it is, Bevin, I can take information and just make it relatable for most people. I see you where you are and I can meet you there. And that's effective teaching. It's not the content. It's getting people to trust you, to be willing to learn from you.
Absolutely. You're so right, because trust can bear the weight of the truth. And the best kind of teachers are the ones that are kind of confronting us with new and different realities or ways of thinking.
I try to be that. Yeah. You have to listen to your community though, right? To do that. And so, yeah, the best kind of teachers listen better than they speak.
Oh, for real, for real. And also you have to keep learning in order to have things to teach about, right? Okay. So how can people access your teachings?
So Club Kindness is the original org that I started in 2015. So quick story there to explain that. I was 26 weeks pregnant. On March 29th, 2012, I slipped and fell on a puddle in a grocery store with my baby in my tummy.
How far along were you?
Gasp, 26 weeks. So at a scary stage, right? Like where baby could come, but shouldn't come. And we'd be holding on for weeks in a hospital praying. My husband is an amazing, strong man. And I don't even remember hitting the floor. I know I did because my knee was messed up, but I went into the splits. And I remember within seconds, his arms just coming and grabbing under mine and lifting me up. So I ignored, we did the report and everything, but I kind of ignored the signs for a couple of days. And then the pain just started getting increasingly worse. Long story short, I ended up on bed rest in horrible, horrible pain, neuropathy, messed up my pelvis with that slide. And doctors could only offer me opioids. That wasn't an option. I actually had all kinds of thoughts about the fact that they were even willing to do that. I know they're whatever, level 2 safe, but just wasn't enough. I actually Googled remedies for chronic pain, natural remedies for chronic pain. And Siri said, weed, bitch, like weed. So
wait, will you just explain for folks who don't fully understand like big pharma and opiates and all of that kind of stuff, like why that was something that you pushed up against?
Well, I mean, when we think about first of all, opioid dependency is a real thing that I think if you don't know, you should. And thinking about the possibility of my unborn child being born addicted to these opioids is a whole nother thing. I would have had to take them indefinitely because I was in so much pain I couldn't walk. And that would have most likely meant for the remainder of my pregnancy, which would have meant several more weeks, 13, 14 more weeks to be exact, of my unborn child consuming opioids. So that their impact on just the development of the fetus, aside from addiction, being born addicted, brain, heart, respiratory, these are all things that an unborn child does not need. Now, as adults, as fully developed humans, we can tolerate it, we can take it a few weeks, get over the pain. But I was just highly concerned about addiction. One, because I think deep down inside, I like being high. So, if I'm going to elevate my mind, I'm going to do it with plant medicine.
It's fun.
And still receive the pain relief, right? Still receive the healing, actual healing, not just temporary pain relief.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just wasn't an option for me. I was more willing to sit in bed and be in pain than to do that. Mm. But I was also very concerned about the energy I was giving Minia, which is her name, who, by the way, was a few weeks early, but is absolutely beautiful and healthy. I know some people are still holding their breath, wondering about what happened. But
How old is she?
so she's 9 now.
Wow.
Yeah, she'll be 10 this June. But yeah, thinking about what I was giving her to emotionally made me want to heal. And at the time, my husband and I owned a juice bar. We were already doing all those things, right? The tinctures of other herbal forms and juices and essential oils and eating right, all of that. And you know, we consumed weed, like we smoked weed. I'm not like a total, you know, square, but it wasn't really a natural part of my life. It wasn't something I even thought was necessarily healing at the time. I didn't have any of the knowledge I currently have in 2012 about this wonderful plant. But like I said, when I Googled it, that's what came up. And it was like pages and pages and pages of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it blows my mind when people say there isn't a lot of research, because that's just not true. But also I went down the rabbit hole and discovered all of the horrible history related to racially biased policies. Obviously, I know that they exist, but didn't realize how heavily woven throughout the fabric of hemp and cannabis they were, and how impactful it's been on our society for decades. And so I quit teaching. I left the classroom. I started Club Kindness, and I started teaching moms in their homes in these little, what I called kind socials, like Tupperware parties for weed.
That's a great, I mean, the grassroots method of teaching in living rooms has been happening for millennia, since living rooms have existed. And I think it's just a really powerful way to connect people to products that actually work.
That's so well said. I mean, because you're right there where they feel safe, right? They've invited you into their home, which is a major level of trust right there. Like, I want to know about this. And, you know, again, I pride myself on being able to reach people where they are. So I would do these fun cards where, you know, everybody would get a card, they'd read it, and it would be like this crazy fact, like, did you know that prior to 1941, cannabis was the #1 prescribed pharmacopoeia in the United States? And it's like, oh, what? You know, because most of us were born after 1941. So all we've seen is the opposite messaging. And then, you know, we expand on that and teach that concept. And so we were constructing this together, and each person in the room was involved in reading these cards, and all the ladies are laughing. And of course, you know, at the time, this was pre-64 in California. So I brought infused edibles, and everybody was getting a little lifted as they were learning. And then there was this whole buying experience at the end. And that's where Club Kindness began.
How did you connect to your clients?
You mean, how did I find them?
Yeah, like getting into the living rooms.
Oh, yeah. So I am truly a PTA mom. And once I decided to go public with my cannabis use, there was no going back. I actually called my dad, who is a retired officer and former Marine. And I said, look, Mad Dog, I'm going to do this. And I know you have thoughts about it. I'm going to tell you, frankly, you don't know what you're talking about. And I will come and teach you why you're wrong, but I'm going to do this. And I want you to know that if I get arrested, if I go to jail, like, you better come and get me. And so we joke about that now, because he's 180 social equity qualified now applicant in the city of Los Angeles, and uses CBD regularly and applies his THC topicals. And sometimes I can get him to eat a little Kiva ball. But long story short, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid to share. So once I decided, like, I was safe, my family was behind me, my husband was behind me, I'm going to tell the world how to heal their bodies, and I'm going to especially talk to other mothers. I did it everywhere. I would be literally at, you know, a PTA meeting, obviously not on the school campus selling weed, but just talking about what I do. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a cannabis educator. What? I mean, in 2015, that was like, what? You know, now it's like a thing, right? You must be a cannabis educator if you're in cannabis, because we need that. But in 2015, it was a new term. It was like, what do you do? And then it was cute, right? To some of the suburban moms around me. Oh, well, can you get me this? Can you get me that? And yeah, I can, but let's talk about what it's really doing for you. And that was it. Then it was referral, referral, referral. And I would see people at parties in Chino Hills where I live. And I know these mothers, our kids are in school together. And they would, oh, you're the, so, whispering that word, you know. They still do that, which is funny. It's 2022 and they still whisper the word weed around here. But they know I'll talk about it, and that I'll talk about it very directly. And I have since had families call me for dosing through cancer treatments for, we're at the end and we need assistance there, connecting with nurses, doctors, and that's what we've become. So now it's just a network, and really I'm just a consultant, not just. I have taken on a consultative role. So people just call me and say, who else can I call, or how can I get this, or where do I get this? And that's just a free service now. Just call me. I'll help you.
Oh, I love that. And it's really a testament to like that grind at the beginning, but being great at something. And then eventually it's the referrals, and you're just so good that people seek you out. I always like to ask stuff like, how do you get your clients? Because it's a mystery to me.
It's hard. Well, now, what's funny is now with our kind, we are approved to advertise on Facebook and Instagram. We have a shop. I've gotten so much wiser because we use infused, right? Plant medicine. We don't say CBD out front because Facebook hates that. But yeah, it took some time to get here. I had to get wiser to learn how to navigate this because, I lost accounts. I got them deleted. I mean, I think we've all been through that.
Yeah, or watched other people go through that. And so luckily learned from the wisdom of other people. I'm really careful about the language I use on all the platforms.
Social media. Yes, it's so important. And I think it helps elevate the consumer too, right? If I say infused, then it provokes a question. Infused with what? Well, then I can talk to you about all the wonderful things that are in it. And really, I'm using the word infusion correctly. So let's talk about vocab too, right? I think it's important to elevate the consumer. I love to use the word weed because I think it's important to honor our history, but also I interchange between cannabis intentionally because that is still a new word to a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it's, you're actually the best teacher I've ever heard talk about why the word marijuana is problematic. Would you share about that?
Yes. And thank you for saying that. It continues to change for me, because again, this wanting to honor our history without, erasing it, but how do you teach that it's a bad word without using it? So you either have to use it or you have to be willing to interface with someone who uses it. Essentially, the history around the word marijuana is that it was actually a word that the indigenous Aztecs and natives used. It was their word. And colonists took the word and used the fact that it was in Spanish to villainize the plant. And by doing so, they said, look at what these hoodlums are doing. It means merry stuff. And so they tried to loose translation. Anyone speaking Spanish might be listening and go, yeah, not exactly, but it means merry stuff. And so it was used to say, look at how they're using it in these sacrilegious ceremonies. This is what it does. And at the time, because racism was just a thing, it's like apple pie. It made sense that if those people are using this, we can make it bad based on those people. And so it began this whole journey of moving down the pathway of, criminalizing it and rescheduling it so that we could move in cotton and hemp. But essentially, when you say the word marijuana or you say marijuana and you don't know if you say it in the sense that I'm just using it because that's the word I've always used, I want to educate you. I want to tell you oh, do you know where that word came from? Or, oh, you mean cannabis? And I'll do that so it's not so offensive. I'll let someone say, oh, well, I don't know, is that what it is? I've always called it marijuana. And then I'll get into a conversation. Well, this is why we really don't, that word, let's evolve from that word, or we've evolved from that word for these reasons. But at the same time, Bevin, as I go deeper down the rabbit hole, and I talk to many of my brown siblings, and they say, listen, we own that word. It's ours. It's marijuana. Right? So it's, I just think it's important to just treat people how they want to be treated. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, there is a power in reclaiming language that's been used against us. I identify as queer, and my grandmother, when she was still alive, really struggled with that because she was raised in a time when that was not a great thing. And but she was so open-minded that she was willing to not care, and so she wouldn't necessarily use the word to describe me, but she didn't wince all the time. She just kind of was like, I don't fully get it, but it seems like it empowers you. And so I'm happy for you.
That's it, right? That's love.
Mhm.
I don't fully get it, but I don't have to.
Yes.
I don't have to, because it's not about me. It fully empowers you. And that is
Yeah.
a type of humility and selflessness that I'd like to see more of us encompass.
Oh, absolutely. For real. Will you talk about the Root family garden?
Of course. That's like my favorite thing to talk about. Well, our kind. Well, what's funny is I say this, our kind, I haven't been more proud of something since the book. So they're right there equal. But this book is like, it's like the manifestation of all, it's like the manifestation of all the work, the years, the fall from 2012 to today, the story, my family, what I've learned, and how to just put it into a nice, neat little package that everyone at all ages can enjoy. So it is the Root family's very special garden. It's a beautifully illustrated children's book by my friend's 16-year-old son, who designed the characters, Aaron Madsen. And I wrote the story, of course. And inside the book, there are vocab words. They're highlighted. There's a glossary in the end with words like, let's see, let me look in here. Cannabinoids, cannabis, companion planting, homeostasis, indica, sativa, strain, terpenes, tincture, and trichomes. So these are simple words because we're talking about a garden. And this is loosely based on my family. I have to say that because my husband says that the male character, the dad character, does not look like him. Yes, it does. He's so hot. But I really wanted to just tell a story about a family that's growing a garden in their backyard with all of the fruit and vegetables and special herbs they need to achieve homeostasis. And we go from gardening store to seeds to watching them grow to harvesting to properly storing them in a safe locked cabinet. And we sit down and we have dinner together as a family. And there's a little how to talk to your kids about cannabis at the end too. And I would like to read that if you'll let me.
Please.
It is number 1, tell them it's a plant. Number 2, tell them for now, it's only for mom and dad. 3, tell them we still have a lot to learn about it, but that many brilliant doctors and scientists are studying it every day so that we can. Number 4, tell them to come to you first if they ever want to try it. And number 5, then tell them you love them. It's simple. It's very simple. I didn't want to overdo it, overthink it, get into all these extractions and chemicals and science, because really what this is about is teaching your children how to make healthy, autonomous choices around all of the cycles of the plant. And that's why companion planting was really important for me to introduce, because I think so many people isolate cannabis in their minds as like, oh, it's over here and you've got to do it this way. And really, no, you can just literally stick it in the middle of your marigolds and tomatoes and it'll thrive. It'll thrive. Just leave it alone. It's been growing since the beginning of time all over the earth.
It's called weed for a reason.
Exactly.
And it's so possible too that centuries from now, it'll just still be growing and still be
without us.
People.
Without us. I'm really interested in what's happening in Africa with the farming of hemp and how it just kind of moves itself around, like it farms itself. I have some Nigerian friends who have been saying like, come here, come here, come here. You've got to get some acreage here. But yeah, essentially they have a system where literally you can like chop these down, go on to the next field. And then when you come back around, those will be backed up. It just keeps cycling and growing, and the soil's so rich that it thrives.
I love that. I had not heard about that. I'm like, you have so much good information. I love it. Can you talk about your healing with psychedelics and psilocybin?
Yes, that's a new journey for me. It's a very new journey. It, like so many people, 2020 and the pandemic hit me hard. I am a very optimistic person. I'm privileged and so grateful that I have an amazing support system. My partner, my husband is everything. My kids are well adjusted. My family's close by. I want to preface this with all of that because so many people don't have that. And I did, and I do. And I still had a freaking nervous breakdown. Like I just was like, I can't do this. I was able to work from home. I was able to transition. The colleges took us to online teaching. All of that worked out for me, but I still was in the house, stuck in the house, fearful about what was happening in the world around me. I'm a junkie, a news junkie. So I was reading and knowing everything, right? And here with my kids and having my kids in the home, hearing their teachers' voices. I'm also an educator, so I'm very critical of other educators. So I'm hearing the way they're talking to my children in ways that I would have never heard before. And taking all of that in and still, you know, trying to keep my practices in place, trying to meditate daily, trying to keep my dosing on cannabis correct. Instead, my wine went way up. My wine intake went way up. And that became an issue in my family for my husband, me waking up late, me not caring about getting out of bed the next day. And it all just kind of came to a head, I would say, fall 2021, where it was like, I'm done with this. And I'm done holding on, and I can't. And I ended up in a ball on the floor in my closet. And I think this is the first time I'm publicly telling the story. People close to me know it, but it's real and it's important to share. And on that closet floor, I have very few memories. I just know I was down there. And then I got some calls over the next few days, and all that's still very fuzzy, to be honest. And then I said, I've got to try something else. And Samantha from Tokativity suggested that I try psilocybin. And of course, you know, being in the plant medicine community, I've been hearing about it. I see it. I know all the things. I know mushrooms. I did mushrooms in my 20s. I did the 1.8 dose with my friend, and I tripped out on the trees. But again, it was not medicine. It was not intentional. Just like I mentioned how cannabis was for me in my 20s, I was just being a dumb kid, going to school, working hard, smoking weed, right? Like not thinking about what this could be. So when Sam suggested I try microdosing it, I was like, okay, I trust you. Let's do this. And I just started with like a 0.15 capsule. Bevin. Psilocybin is everything. Like it's everything. First, all these little fun moments started happening where I was driving and not anxious, where I was driving and not sad, where I was seeing the trees breathe, and not in like a crazy, like the trees are talking to me way, because when you talk about psychedelics, a lot of people think like, oh, the walls are going to melt. This is a healthy microdose. Yeah. This was enough for me to appreciate what the trees do for me.
Just to give people context, if they don't understand dosing, like I would say the trees talking to you is like 1 gram or more. So like,
absolutely.
Right. 0.15 is a glimmer if you even get that, right? So keep going.
Absolutely. No, definitely. So that's a great scale, like above 1 gram. Yes. Now you're not driving, not talking, you're like, I don't want to see you. I just want to feel this. But yeah, 0.15 is like a vitamin. That's what it's become for me. It's become for me a supplement, and it's really making connections in my brain that I never thought were there. I've been using the term, I can cut the fat. I'll say the shrooms helped me say no, because I know what I need now and what I don't need. And that's really been amazing. I'm happier, I'm freer, I'm more connected, I'm more affectionate with my husband. He's like, I really like you. We like each other again after 13 years, you know? It has done something very magical for me, Bevin, that I'm still working out. I'm journaling every day, but it's opened my mind in ways that I never knew it could be. I always wanted it to be. I always imagined. I always saw other people and aspired to have that level of freedom and thought and expression and identity. And it has done that for me, and it continues to do it. I will do maybe 0.15 a day for 3-4 days. Then I'll take 2 or 3 days off. Then I'll go back to that dose. I do like that sort of regularity of giving myself breaks, giving my brain breaks, because I also, there's a lot more research to be done, but I'm using it in a way right now that it's been very beneficial for me. And I actually haven't felt the need to do a larger dose again. I haven't felt the need to take that trip yet. I think if I do, it will be guided, and I will go into it with a very clear intention of what I want to come out of it, feeling after.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And I love the hope that comes from healing with plants and all that can happen and can refresh. And I also like really identify with the laying on the ground in the
Yeah, I know
closet.
that about you. I know that about you. I listen, like, it's the earth, right? So something called me down there. I
Mhm.
was in like this place of extreme trauma, of complex PTSD, of from all the things that we all felt from 2020 and and in the years following. And the ground just said, get down here. And I just was down there.
Mhm.
And that's where the healing began. The moment I lay down on the ground is when I started to heal.
It's
Yeah, I'm
really
gonna get
interesting.
emotional.
But it's true. I think I do a daily walk in the forest and frequently with plant medicine, mostly cannabis. And like I lay down on the ground when I feel like it. And I wear a big puffy coat, so it's not that big a deal. But like it really does sometimes just call me. Like I like to listen to my body and just let it do what it wants. Especially if I don't have responsibilities or I've carved out time with no responsibilities to just like trust what the land and what my body needs at that time. And a lot of times, like one of my favorite yoga postures is savasana, and that's the only
Hmm.
posture I do. Just lay down.
I think it's so important for you to say that, because giving yourself time. As you were talking about, like, I just like to be on the ground. And I was thinking about all the people's minds who are like, I wish I had time for that. I wish I had time for that. Right. And then you immediately said, when I carve out the time, when I've decided I don't have any other responsibilities, and this is what I'm going to do. So that's the magic. Like deciding that I'm going to even give myself 5 freaking minutes.
Mm,
I call that sneaking in silence.
mm.
Just sneak
Sneaking
it
in
in.
silence. Yes. I also, it's funny, my friend sort of characterized those times when you do the face melting dose of plant medicine as like when I don't have any responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's when I do that kind of level of healing. And I'm like, yep, yeah. And it's funny too, because the last time I had a real face melt experience, and this was only with cannabis actually, I kind of accidentally had a face melt experience right before 420. And it was kind of great because sometimes the plant wants to come through and really teach you some truths that maybe aren't so easy to hear. But I had a lot of stuff come up around like I was worried that I was missing something. And I was like, but I kept reminding myself, I was like, no, I carved out time to have no responsibilities. Like, but it was like this weird fight I was having in my brain when like, I don't know. It's sometimes I think like the plant is just going to teach you what it wants to teach you. And I like to go into it for a jolly good time, but sometimes it's not jolly good when you can't control your thoughts. But if I can look at it as the plant always loves me and has my best interest in mind, I can just kind of like, I have all the tools, right? Like I know to go lay in the bed, pull the covers over and just like settle myself and just be present for the experience until I fall asleep.
That's it. I mean, it's knowing what to do, right? Having the tools and trusting the plant
Mm-hmm.
that it's not going to hurt you. It's not trying to hurt you. It really, it can't hurt you, to be honest. It can't.
You can't
You can hurt
overdose on
yourself
it.
with you can't. You'd have to eat like something like 8 pounds of weed in like 6 hours or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But literally you can hurt yourself with the methods though, right? So that's why like methods of consumption is something that's so important as a part of my teaching. I'm combustion, temperature, heat, all of those things that our ancestors were not doing. They were just like chewing it and eating it and bathing in it, rubbing it, and occasionally lighting it up, but even not combusting it in the way that we do. Dabbing, concentrates, trace chemicals, the bottles we're putting it in, what's seeping into the products. And so we can hurt ourselves with the plant, but the plant cannot hurt us. And that's why I love just having it in the backyard and just picking it and pressing it.
Oh, I love it. Wait, how would you press it? I've never heard of that.
So, well, rosin is a press, an actual like taking the plant and
Oh.
putting it between two heated and just pressing it down. And you can do this at home, real simple style with some wax paper and an iron. And you can put a nice, juicy, fresh bud in there and put it between there and press it out and make your own freaking resin. Yeah, you could. It's just two metal plates pushing it. It's squeezing out the raw essential oils of the plant.
Wow. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
And of course, you can always just drop it in some oil and heat it up, and then you've infused it into the oil, right? That's another like really pure way I like to do it. And of course, I like to smoke it, but I tend to make that a social experience.
Well, I like that boundary. I think that this plant is so incredible just as like a lifelong learner. I am always learning new stuff about it. And like, I mean, even just like the other day, I had a migraine and my friend was like, myrcene is the terpene you want. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. She texted it to me. But
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, wow, it's so great to know and have a lot of this figured out.
A lot of it. And then like we're in such a great community that your friend texted you that, right? So that means like your friends know about weed. They know about myrcene, really? And so that's really cool. I am that person, right? For my friends. Like, oh, I was gonna do this, but this person told me this. Is that true? I'm like, oh, you know I'm gonna have the answer to that. And if I don't, I know somebody that I'm gonna text to get the answer to that. So I love that.
Mskindness, what is your favorite terpene?
Definitely linalool, I will say. Just because I do like to sleep. I like to be rested. I'm very high energy. I mentioned I deal with anxiety. It's a part of like my nature to worry a little bit about what's coming so that I can be ahead of it. And I need the most relaxing terpenes. And I love like indicas, purples. I stay there. I can do it in the morning. I can do it in the evening. It doesn't matter. I stay away from whites, greens, things like that. Green crack, which the name changed, I believe. I can't. Walter White. I don't know. Anyways, I stay away from those because they tend to produce more anxiety for me.
It's really interesting how I think the plant teaches us what we need from her. And I miss this about when it was medical in California, you could go into the dispensary and smell and just base your buying decisions based on what your body was telling you about that plant. And it's
so cool that you mentioned that because so many people don't know that. Like, it is so important to smell the freaking herb. Like, you got to smell it and it'll tell you, oh, no, I don't like this. And we can't do that anymore. You're right, because we closed it all up.
So weird. You can do it in Oregon. So if anybody is traveling through Oregon, it's worth a stop in a dispensary. I don't know that all of them do, but I know you can still
smarter do it. After California messes up, the other states get smarter.
I mean, this is such a weird time because this is a time that we're going to remember before it was all federally legalized and before it was even more uniform, and it's like this very interesting state by state situation. But it's kind of fun too, being on the cutting edge of destigmatizing something that is so important. And so, I mean, we've used this plant for millennia, and it's just systems of powers and colonization that has kind of torn us away from all this inherent healing. And I don't even know that it was, I don't know, maybe it was premeditated. Maybe they were like, hey, let's tear people away from this plant so they'll suffer more and be more willing to fall in line.
Let us lead them, fall in line. I think about that like all the time. So I was listening to this podcast actually, and I think it was Radiolab, and they were talking about becoming sinister after an opportunity to do so presented itself. So these are people who weren't inherently thinking of doing bad things, living their everyday lives, doing good work, but then this thing fell out in front of them, right? That was not something they were supposed to do, but it was like right there and you could do it. And after they did it, it awakened this thing in them that turned them sinister. And then they were like, ooh, I like this, right? I'll give an example, a plane crash. The story was this plane crash. It had a bunch of weed in it because it was coming from Colombia. The pilot died, and the people who were living in the camps, and I want to say this was Yosemite at the time. This was like, whatever, 40, 50 years ago. You got to look this up because it's such an interesting story. But all the people, like, they discovered this plane had crashed. And so they started going up there and like getting the weed and bringing it back down and selling it. And like, some of them like started legitimate businesses with the money that they sold from this. And like some people they went into the game after that because they liked the numbers. And so I'm saying all this to say that I don't know that it was premeditated or if it was opportunity.
Mm.
But once cotton came and once slavery ended and the depression hit us, there was a need to replace our workforce because we lost our free workforce, which were the African slaves.
Yeah.
And so let's replace them with American prisoners. And I don't know if it was a whole big old plan or if it just got put into place when the opportunity presented itself. But I often think about that.
Yeah. I'm really grateful for the work that you do and the work that so many people do to help sort of rectify the war on drugs and the people affected by it.
We're trying.
I mean, I think I'm an optimistic person because it's the only way I can keep going.
Same. People ask me all the time, like, well, you're always talking about this. Like, why don't you just stop talking about it? I'm like, well, it's not making me upset to talk about it. It's making me upset that it's something I even have to tell, that it's happening. Like, it's real. Like, I want to change it. So I'm telling you so that we can change it together. Someone said something to me the other day that it's not that we need to burn the whole thing down. We need to compost this shit. Compost it and grow bigger, amazing, more beautiful, fruitful trees.
Yes. There's always something beautiful growing out of ashes. And we can, and the whole, it's so interesting being in the forest so much. I just recognize now that it's one living organism that's comprised of thousands of organisms that process with each other all the time and just sort things out and make it happen. And it's interesting because I think capitalism makes us feel like we need to be in a rush all the time, but nature is not in a rush. She's simply persistent and open to the constant. Like, once I realized every time I walked into the forest, it had changed. Like, something has changed every single day. And like, just recognizing that and realizing, oh, like, my relationship to change has always been through like the lens of fear. And like, that's so weird because change is just what's happening.
It's so funny. Like, we say this, right? There's only 3 things we know for sure: that you're going to be born. And if you're born, you're going to die. And in between that time, there's going to be everything's going to change. Nothing's going to be the same. And we can't accept those things. Those are like the 3 hardest things for us to really receive and process as humans. Because our relationship with change has typically been taught to be through a lens of fear. Like, oh, you don't know what's coming, or be ready or else, right? And that's something I will say that the shrooms have also been communicating to me, to accept, because it is. And sitting with that, like, this is. There's this beautiful tree that I can see while I'm talking to you right now outside my window that keeps waving at me. And I'm looking up at it because it keeps waving at me. And when you said that, like, every time I go into the forest, the trees change, or things change all around me. I have been having that experience in my own yard, just being like, oh, hey, Olive, I see some new branches. Thank you for that. Olive is the name of my olive tree in the front yard.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to be able to have that on the way to work, right? Like, I'm still a high ass functioning human, right? So when people are listening to us talk this way, I think sometimes there's either a level of envy or confusion, because, unless they can relate completely, but because they're like, how are you talking like this? You sound like hippy dippy, or whatever the language is they want to use to describe this freedom that we're expressing right now. But I do that, like, also while doing mathematics, also while, it's like, this can be a fully integrated experience if you let it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. Mskindness, will you tell your love story with your husband?
Ooh, I don't get asked that a lot. I love this. So Aaron is 8 years younger than me. He is my baby boo. And that is what is engraved in his wedding band as well. I met him when I was teaching high school. He was a student at the high school I taught at, but I did not teach him. Nor did I have him, actually. He graduated the year before I started teaching there. I just teased him a lot. People tease us a lot about that, because I could have literally been his teacher just a year earlier. And I met him when he was 21. At the time, I had been teaching a while, and he's a massage therapist. And I was over at my brother's house, who is also a teacher, who had been his mentor. And so when I was there, I was talking to my brother, like, oh yeah, I need a massage. Oh my God, da, 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 these kids, blah, blah, blah. You know, me and my cute little 31-year-old self. And he said, oh, I have a great massage therapist. His name's Aaron, blah, blah, blah. Aaron came over. I remember looking at him and just being like, a cheesy smile. And he says, like, you smiled so big that all I can remember is how, you know, just your teeth and how gorgeous your smile was. And I said, oh, you're cute, but you're too young for me. And I just joked. He became my massage therapist. I think I got 3 or 4 massages. But then during that time, we started hanging out socially at the same time. So we would like go to reggae clubs and dance and groove and like smoke the herb and feel the vibe. And I think it was my 4th massage. After the massage, I remember saying, that felt different. I think I like you. I'm not paying you anymore. Literally. And I think we made out like later that night. And I feel as though the rest is history. We dated a couple months. He got on my nerves. He was too young for me. We broke up. A couple months later, we got back together. I got pregnant like 2 months after that. And I really, you know, at that point, I was like, okay, I'm 32, 33, I think I was. And I hadn't really thought about having kids, to be honest, and wasn't trying. I had been on the pill for 16 years and I'd literally just stopped taking the pill like 4 months before that. And so it was divine timing and it was meant to be with my husband. And he sat down with me the day I told him and he said, oh, okay, well, that means we're going to be a family. And that was it. And I think we got married like 6 months later, and it's been 12 and a half years.
That means we're going to be a family. That's a really beautiful way to respond to that news.
That's what he said to me, Bevin. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. Because I didn't really grow up with that kind of commitment, that kind of closeness. My parents got divorced when I was 3. You know, my stepdad raised me, but then they got divorced after 17 years. And then my mom got married again. My mom's married 5 or 6 times. You know, I love her to death, but I didn't have that like, this is family, regardless of contract, right? Paper contract, regardless of last name, this is family. And that's a spiritual contract.
Yes.
And so signing a piece of paper a couple months later meant nothing. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been engaged a couple of times and I've thought a lot about like what weddings mean and what marriage means. And I used to be a lawyer. So like I was trying, that first wedding was a gay wedding. Like we couldn't legally get married. So thinking about like, I had thought through like all the contracts we could do and how expensive that was to even create. And then of course, how expensive it would have been to uncreate when we needed to. And I think that spiritual moment where you decide to be a family with someone, that's commitment. And that's what really matters. Like more so than I think the legal stuff and more so than like being witnessed. But of course, those things matter too.
I mean, I think they matter because, well, they matter. They matter for so many people. I never want to say that like to any marriage that like your contract, your legal contract is less significant than my spiritual contract. But yes, absolutely. Without the spiritual contract, the legal contract will not sustain. It just won't.
It won't.
The reason why it's important, obviously, in American society is to be able to protect your loved ones. So I have the same last name as my children, you know, what it means to society, what it means to be able to advocate for my husband. God forbid something happens. So those reasons are important. But when I think about commitment, I aspire to be much more like the East in that this is familial love, right? Arranged marriages last forever because they're committed to growing together, getting to know each other over time, taking your time, and establishing familial love.
And what a fertile place to grow children.
My kids are so amazing.
So your daughter's 9 and your son is 12?
He's 12, yes.
Oh my God. How has it been being a public Canna family?
It's actually been really well received. I will say this, you know, credibility helps. I am a teacher. I'm a teacher first. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm credentialed. I have a master's degree. Don't come for me. You know what I mean? Like I get to say that. but my children are healthy and smart, and they know how to talk about things. We have had the conversation, what's public, what's private. They know when they go out into the world how to represent. They ask questions more than they are didactically, telling someone things. I think, for us, because it's just such a mission, I don't, not to sound crass, but I don't really care what people think. I want them to learn from us. I want them to see us and take all the parts of us. And if some of that means you judge us because that's what your brain does, at least you're taking us in. And if you're taking us in, I know that what we're putting out is good. So I'm putting good into you, whether you know that that's what's happening or not. And the community has been amazing. And the Canna moms, right? It's like a tribe, right? I don't even think, no, I take that back. That's not appropriate language, but it's a group that you can't penetrate. Like, don't come for another Canna mom, because we got you, right? We've got each other's back. So that's been really beautiful. And then the book really opened up like the conversation around talking with your kids around cannabis, having an intelligent conversation with your kids about this plant, growing it yourself, gardening, teaching your kids to make autonomous choices around food and herbs and other plants. And yeah, it's just been, it's been really positive, actually. I'm super grateful for the receipt of the community and watching the message continue to spread. We actually are going to be coming out soon, my entire family, on the cover of a magazine that I won't say yet. And there's a feature story about us inside and how we do all this as a family.
Oh, that's so awesome. Mskindness, will you share the best ways to find you on the internet? And I'll also put links to all of it in the show notes so folks can clicky, but if they're listening and they want to typey.
Yeah, absolutely. I can be, I'm sorry, did I just mess up I think I did. Hold on a second.
I can still hear you.
Okay. I can be found very easily at mskindness.com. Again, that is my name, my real name. It's Mskindness, all together, no space, lowercase k. Thank you, world.
I bet you say that many times a day.
I say it many times a day. But that's the easiest place to go, because from there you can link to Our Kind, you can link to Club Kindness, you can link to all of the other work I do. You can buy a book, you can buy a Canna Mom t-shirt, you can read some of my musings. It's just, mskindness.com is the easiest place to find me.
It is a beautiful website, I have to say. Very well put together.
You.
It looks good on computer and on a device.
Ooh, thank you. I built that myself.
I'm impressed. As someone who has built many websites and has no aptitude for it, I'm impressed at how well you've done.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, Mskindness, thank you so much for spending the time and educating and just being you in the world. Honestly, I think the world is far better because you're in it. And I'm just grateful that you're my friend and that I get to be in community with you.
I received that, Bevin. I appreciate this time with you. Thank you for such thoughtful questions and letting me share my story. This was fun. And I love looking at you on a screen while doing this. This is terrific.
Yay. Thanks so much. Yay. Bye, everybody.